Welcome into the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia, where the voice of the Rochester fan is heard. Pull up a stool and join us at 866-4326. This is WGR Rochester, and the Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia is on now.
2 hours of sports talk excellence here in the Flower City from the High Falls Studios, where the sun is out. We're ready for the weekend, and we're ready to talk sports with you this afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Plenty of ways you can join us. 95.7 FM, AM 950, streaming for free inside the Odyssey app. We're on YouTube and on Twitch. You can leave a comment there. You can write to us on all social media platforms. The one we keep an eye on during the show is our X account at WGR Rochester. If you just want to get a quick one-liner off, certainly we welcome that. And some of you are really, really snarky. We appreciate that. And then you can give us a call, as always, on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub Wingman line at 585-866-4326. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub, 135 West Commercial Street, East Rochester. Good Smoke. BBQ.com. Spencer German from 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland will be joining us. As, hey, there is a game tomorrow. It's the Bills and the Browns. Spencer, probably from the 585. We'll get the Cleveland side of things, where you have, the best defensive player of this generation, and you had to trade him away. Now, you never want to hold a player against their own will, but he did sign the contract. So what's been the fallout for that? Or are things actually trending in the right direction in Cleveland? I don't think they found the quarterback, but we'll learn from Spencer here in a little bit. You're always welcome to join us, too, as just the one guest today, which means plenty of time for you on the show. I'll start here where, yes, we have a game tomorrow. And in terms of Bills news today, the day before a game, you're never really getting anything. And if you do get something, it's not normally good. So take it. No news is good news for the Buffalo Bills today. You'll see them on the field tomorrow. And you would figure those guys that did not practice yesterday will not be dressing tomorrow, right? Nor should they. In fact, is there any starter that should participate tomorrow? Is there anybody that might need a little work? I'm not going to say that Joe Brady is going to sit everyone, but it wouldn't surprise me. But I'm going to give you some reasons as to why to watch this tomorrow, actually. Because unlike other markets, like say New York City, it's the Yankees and Mets, number one. It's baseball this time of year. And they're coming off the glow of an NBA championship. Even when they're not winning an NBA championship, I would say like football is third in New York. In Massachusetts, the Patriots, well, how many did they win? I don't want to have to bring that up, but as much as they've won the last decade, it still is baseball out there. You go pick a different market, Los Angeles. Gosh, NFL is way down on the list. Most parts, NFL is king, and it is the super king here. So where in New York, you're not talking anything beyond the quarterbacks. We're talking about, hey, who's making this roster, and that's fun. We all get to be scouts tomorrow. We all get to say what we like, what we don't like. We're watching this game with our phone, and you're consuming takes and looking for info. So if you're a football junkie, specifically a Bills junkie, you'll watch tomorrow. I'll watch. I'd like to say I'm above it. I'm not. I mean, I'll try to make myself productive, and this is how I do it. I will have the game on. It's a Saturday, and they'll go to commercial break, and one of those, like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and, there's a basket of laundry that you got to fold. And I'll try to knock out as much as I can, and then, yay, I did myself, making the executive producer happy. I'll get to my top 5 things to watch for tomorrow. As, again, it's not just me here in the sports bar. Francesco is in the background. He's doing a great job filling in for Dan DeLorean. When Dan DeLorean comes back, our fine producer, Tim Schneider, he's not shaving. He's going to look like he spent, literally 2.5 weeks in the woods in the Adirondacks, which is exactly what he did.
We're going to come back looking like one another, because by the time he's back, this will be gone. This is a horribly grown playoff softball beard that has been rained out for about 3 weeks. I'm just trying to get rid of it.
You're done with softball,
I got
right?
one game left on Sunday. Well, one day left on Sunday. It's all playoffs. So if we win, we play until we lose, but I just want it to be over, honestly.
What's the forecast for Sunday?
I haven't even looked. I'm just waiting for it to be over.
Just as you can play. I think softball you can play in rain, just as long as it's not thunder and lightning. Baseball, when it's coming in velocity, you don't want to be
85% chance of rain. So this might be going for another week.
Tim, it's a good thing you're not on camera. Well, actually, you are on camera.
Yeah, it
so
doesn't
they'll put
count.
you on. It doesn't count. Actually, you know what's funny? Let me do this just for this. We have the lights getting in here. Let me turn on the other light. There we go. It helps out a little bit. Not really, like the camera. We're radio first here, not for the cameras, but there's Tim on camera for everybody watching on YouTube and Twitch.
It's time for a shave, I'll tell you that.
If you're trying to picture what Tim looks like, you look like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo.
I do.
Once upon a time, Tim Lincecum, I think, would have fit the bill, but now it's just, if you put you in a green shirt and you know. By the way, Shaggy was a stoner, right? We're kind of assuming that, like drove around in a van. His best friend was a dog.
Almost certainly.
He
was very snack time. I am not, for the record.
No, you're not.
People assume I am. I am not. I promise you.
You're just a fun-loving guy who likes to buy people beer.
That's right.
Yeah,
I love the beer store, not the weed store.
585-866-4326 is the number. Yeah, some shows have like teams of producers. Like when you're watching, McAfee or Levitar or any of those guys, like, no, it's just us here on the show. So if you're going to call the show at 585-866-4326, guess what? You're going to get Timmy. And you got to get by Timmy to get on the show. Bills and Browns, 1 o'clock tomorrow from Cleveland. Maybe you're going to the game, and you could say, I don't care about preseason football, and I hear you on that. But for those that do love the game and do love the Bills, this is where we get to scout, and we get to form opinions and see if we're right in terms of the 53. Here are my top 5 things to watch for tomorrow. Number 1, the backup quarterbacks for the Buffalo Bills. If we have a game where it ends up being 10-7 or whatever it is, and the offense, second string offense, mind you, doesn't get it into gear, we're going to come back Monday and we're going to be having a conversation of, all right, it's a short week for the Buffalo Bills. What do we do here with these quarterbacks? And we, in the debate is very clear, right? Hey, you have Josh Allen. Josh Allen is the quarterback of this team, and if you lose Josh Allen, well then you're done anyways, and that's absolutely true, right? But what I'm referring to, just the bridge quarterback here, like what happens when you have somebody go down, and I don't want to even bring that up. But from what I've seen so far from Kyle Allen and Fisher, and a little bit, in Buffalo with the preseason, I'm just kind of worried. I don't know if this is now. But the good news is that, well, it's not good, I suppose, but the idea that there are going to be a lot of quarterbacks that are going to be out on the street in a few weeks. So some familiar names, perhaps, but my gosh, this is a league where Tyrod is still going, Josh Johnson is still going. The idea that Kenny Pickett, we saw him last week. By the way, pop quiz for Tim. Do you know where Tyrod is now? Mike isn't on there.
I don't know. I used to know. Now I don't. Is it the Giants again?
No.
Not the Chargers again?
No.
Is it a new place?
It's a new place.
Chicago?
Green Bay.
I should have just said no.
Josh Johnson's in Cincinnati. Brandon Allen's with the Giants. Easton Stick is with the Colts. These guys just move around. So I guess maybe it's much ado about nothing. However, if there's a doomsday scenario for the Buffalo Bills, I just want to feel a little bit better because we've had that comfort over the years. Hey, Mitchell Trubisky, no worries. Case Keenum, he's the guy in Chicago now.
There it is.
Case Keenum.
We talked about him the other day.
Yeah, Case Keenum. Like, the Bills have had guys. This is an area this year, though, that, all right, you got kind of didn't spend any money on. So between one of these two guys, will somebody pop? And you could say, well, they're playing with the second string. Well, they're also going against second string and third string defense, too. I'd assume Cleveland, and we'll talk to Spencer German here in a little bit. I would assume Cleveland is not going to go crazy playing starters in this game tomorrow. Number 2 on my list, and now coming out of the preseason game, some people are like, I don't know. And I would say, anybody that makes 80% of their plays, I think is okay, including a kicker. And for Tyler Bass, I thought his game was okay last week, particularly the kickoffs, exactly where you want to put him. Boop. Like, put him, like, right between the, right around the 5-yard line, right? You don't want the touchback, but you don't want to kick it so short, so it does require some skill. And for Tyler Bass to miss the one kick, but he redeemed himself. Here's what I come down on kicking. Like, in this day and age, anything under 50 yards is a given. It's crazy to think, right? That's not how it was. But with the science and the equipment and just the way it's evolved, this is place kicking now in 2026. And for Tyler Bass to miss 2 kicks yesterday, apparently, we had just kind of a deluge because practice was just wrapping up yesterday around this time. And then we come to find out, a lot of Bills had a good day yesterday, but not Tyler Bass. Again, Tyler Bass, the status hasn't changed much from last week. Going into that game, he was a top 5 guy to watch. And if he misses a kick or 2 this week, well, then we're going to be thinking, should they bring somebody else in? I'm not going to second guess, by the way, Brandon Beane, the kicker competition. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of a roster spot. It really is. You can go get a kicker week 1, and the Bills did that multiple times last year. They got Matt Prater, and they got a few other guys. I can't even remember the guy that kicked in Cleveland last year. He was here, and he was gone. But the idea is these guys are plentiful around the league, and even the best guy in the league. Who's the best kicker in the league today? Brandon Aubrey, Dallas Cowboys. He kicked in Rochester once upon a time, not as a football guy. Yeah, Toronto FC 2. So kickers, you can find them in the strangest of spots. So am I concerned about Tyler Bass? No, I'm not. But what if it blows up? I'd be curious to see when they would make the move. Would they give him one last shot against Pittsburgh, or would you make this move now? The money is not. Last year, there was something to be said if he was healthy, like, you cut him, it's going to cost you a little bit because you'd be underwater on the contract. Right now, it would be kind of a wash. So Tyler Bass, hoping he pulls out of it. Lesson here is where I say, hey, I agree with Brandon Beane for don't bring in the second kicker. What's the point? I disagree with paying a kicker. You don't need to pay a kicker. Again, they're plentiful. So, if Tyler Bass didn't like it, well, then let somebody else sign and bring in somebody else. There's always somebody else. Number 3 on my list. Boy, I love Kenai Walker last week. I really did. Kenai Walker, can he be corner 4? Can he beat out Toriano Pride on this roster? It was a roster going into camp thinking, oh, gosh, they could really use Tre'Davious White, couldn't they? Like, we like Maxwell Hairston. You like IGB. You don't have any worries about Christian Benford. But what about the depth behind that? And for Kenai Walker, if he makes another play or 2, okay, he intercepted. It wasn't Kenny Pickett. It was what did we call him? The deliberate learner, Trask. For Kenai Walker, if he steps up once again, could he actually beat out Pride and make the 53? I mean, at minimum, he's on the practice squad, but I think he's been so good that, hey, you're a team that needs a corner? Yeah, that might not be a bad thing, because remember how the practice squad works. You get cut, and then you have this weird window of whatever it is, 24, 48 hours, and you're sitting out there, and you could sign with anybody. You could sign on another team's practice squad, but why would you want to do that? But if another team comes knocking, hey, you can come in and join us on the 53. Tim, I remember the last time the Bills had somebody like this, and they tried to sneak him through the practice squad, and boop, the Jets picked the guy off. I don't know where he is today, but he had a great name. Rashard Wildgoose. Rashard Wildgoose. Little did we know that he wouldn't make it to the practice squad. Tim's looking him up right now.
He is with the Birmingham Stallions as of a season ago. So
he didn't even make it to camp this time around.
The UFL.
Maybe he can go back to college and make money.
Maybe. Actually, no. He wasn't part of the. Funny, I said yesterday we're either a day late or a day early. Today something happened with that.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
It's just it is a full-blown mess, and I love it. I absolutely love it. Number 4 on the list, and this isn't sexy, but you know what? If you're listening to the show, chances are you love the Bills, and chances are you want to dig a little deeper, right? Who's the backup center? Because I didn't think Cushenberry was good last week. I didn't think the offensive line was particularly good in front of Josh Allen. Josh Allen was kind of scooting around, and granted, it was week 1, and sometimes these things happen. Cedric Van Pran Granger was a player that, hey, when we all just thought that Connor McGovern was going to leave in free agency, Van Pran Granger was the next guy up. He was a guy that has versatility, which the Bills love. He can play guard. He can play center. Hey, he was on that national championship team with Georgia. This is your future center. I was buying into that storyline. I'm not even sure he makes this roster. So who plays when at center? I'm going to admit, it's tough to evaluate offensive line play. I mean, sometimes it's easy, right? Here's a corner coming off, and you beat the guy, or multiple holding calls or whatever, false starts. Those are really annoying. Get your head in the game. But when it comes to assignments, it's tough, and you got to be cautious sometimes waving your finger, particularly at interior play. Who has who? Who's responsible for that? It's tough, and I rely on some of the smarter people for that. But who plays when is going to be key. And the fifth key is this: it's not a secret. It's actually a big tell. Watch who is playing in the second half next week. Now, you could have a rookie like Kenai Walker playing in the second half, and that's fine. He needs the work. You can have a second-year player getting some work in. But if it's a veteran and you see them out there, that is a tell with a capital T. So who is out there? No definitive word on starters here, but again, just kind of manage your expectations when it comes to that tomorrow. It's one of those games where you have it on, and when they go to break, you're just kind of doing multiple things. You're working around the house, doing whatever. We've got Spencer German. We'll talk a little bit more about this matchup tomorrow. 585-866-4326 is the number. We did have some action last night. We have action tonight. Of those teams playing tonight, there are 3 games tonight. Of those 6 teams playing tonight, would it surprise you that of those 6 teams, 5 of their 6 starting quarterbacks are going to see action tonight? Actually, I'm kind of surprised by this. Bryce Young against Trevor Lawrence. By the way, if you see the highlights from that game, Jacksonville is going to look a little strange. That stadium is under construction. They've got a whole area tarped off. It's going to be looking a little weird. Jordan Love against Bo Nix. And then you get Geno Smith against not Aaron Rodgers. Will Howard, Drew Lar. Not even Mason Rudolph. So that's tonight. You get the 3 games. It's the Jets and Steelers, by the way, the first game up on the NFL Network, if you're so inclined. 585-866-4326. Brad in Rochester. Hey, Brad.
Hey, one name I remember is Alex Austin as a corner.
Yeah.
That we tried to squeeze through, and suddenly he's on his second contract with someone right now. I could definitely see Kenai Walker making the team and being able to take pride and put him to the practice squad, because that's the best way to do it because Kenai Walker's made plays and someone's going to scoop him up. I think Van Pran Granger, I think he's trade bait for like a 6th rounder from somebody. I can see it coming. I know, was it the Chargers lost their center and is probably looking for depth? We could possibly unload that for maybe a 6th or 7th. Keon Walker's got to play. He's got to get on the field because he may or may not. He's going to be buried at number 6 on the roster behind everybody because Hartman's making plays at punting. Bell is a rookie. You're never going to get rid of a rookie. And Palmer's going to make plays, so he may be sitting at like 5 or 6. I'm not sure. And I would not be surprised if the backup quarterback's not on the roster right now and we are searching for someone other than Kyle Allen and Shane Bichelle.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised at that.
Yeah.
If, suddenly Mitch Trubisky falls out of favor in Tennessee, oh my gosh, guess what? Yep, we're dropping them all and picking up Mitch. So that's just a thought there.
Yeah, thank you. Great points. And I had to look up, that's a good pull, Alex Austin. Now, he's still in the league, apparently, with the Dolphins. Spent a few years in New England. But, yeah, he popped for the Bills at corner in 23, and the Bills tried to get him through. And, yeah, nope, we're not getting you through to the practice squad. Houston claimed him, and by doing so, he was on their active roster for week 1. So, look, it's a sign of a good roster, right? If we get the cut down day, that's not malpractice by Brandon Beane if some guys end up on other teams. But to your point, Brad, I mean, I would think the best you could do for Cedric Van Pran Granger at this point would be a pick swap. You know, that old, okay, we'll send it, and then you give us a 6, and we'll give you a 7. Which ultimately, helps you out a little bit, I suppose. You get something for nothing, basically, because if the player's not going to make your team anyways, well, then you're just cutting your losses, so to speak. Let's talk to Spencer German, 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland. Always time for your calls on the other side of that. We've got Tim's terrible take of the day. Let's see if we give him a passing grade for the week. We'll let you be the judge here in the Sports Bar. My name is Gene Battaglia.
WGR Rochester Sports Update.
Bills and Browns tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Head coach Joe Brady of Buffalo says he might use Ray Davis in a different way, returning punts.
It's something that's important to him, and look, you guys saw what he did with the kick return role last year, and if he feels like he can take advantage of that this year and can make the most of these punt return opportunities, then, so be it. So, he's firmly in the mix of it.
We'll get the Brown side of things. Rochester native Spencer German, 92.3 The Fan in Cleveland, will join us next. Rochester Red Wings, they're in a three-way tie for first place in the 20-team International League in the second half. Wings look to make it 7 in a row tonight as they once again play at Omaha. They go to the second only game in the majors right now. Braves and Brewers are scoreless. Yankees open a series tonight at the stadium against the Jays. The Mets in Chicago to take on the White Sox. Red Sox hosting the Giants. Gene Battaglia, WGR Rochester.
The best local sports talk in the Flower City. The Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR Rochester.
Some people may care about this, but I think it's just kind of important to point out. Welcome back to the Sports Bar. Gene Battaglia with you. I appreciate having Cleveland Brown reporters on the sidelines yesterday because anybody that covers the Buffalo Bills has to sign, well, not electronically sign, a document that says any chatter you hear amongst players is not reportable. Okay, so that means you're in the locker room, you see two players walking, in the hallway, whatever it is. I learned yesterday that's not true with all teams because that's fair game if C.J. Gardner-Johnson is just chirping away at Shedeur Sanders out there yesterday. Spencer German, longtime friend of the show. But certainly appreciate your time today, Spencer. And, yeah, let's just kind of start there. I guess we knew that C.J. Gardner-Johnson, was always running his mouth. But, tell us about the quarterback competition so far between Shedeur and Deshaun Watson. How are you today, Spencer?
Doing well, yeah. I appreciate you having me on as always, Gene. Listen, I think I'm always kind of curious to get an outside perspective of how people feel about it because I think we get pretty close to it here in Cleveland, just everything that's kind of unfolded. But my read on it from a local standpoint is that I think Todd Monken started this thing feeling like somebody would take the reins, somebody would at some point sort of pull away, and I don't know that he ever really saw that or got that or that one of these guys is like truly run away with the competition or really cemented themselves as the obvious answer. But so I think when it comes down to it, like he's kind of having to decide and split hairs a little bit on like what's important to him philosophically. And so if you're talking about Deshaun Watson, I think he trusts Deshaun Watson more in just the operation piece of, hey, getting in and out of the huddle, getting guys aligned, getting guys up to the line of scrimmage, and making sure that everything's kind of operating correctly. Now, he's had some procedural issues himself, not to say that it's only Shedeur, but I think he just trusts Deshaun a little bit more with that stuff and understanding like situational awareness, the football IQ part of it. But the plays with Deshaun, admittedly, haven't been quite as pretty. Like he's had some moments where he's kind of gotten into a little bit of a rhythm, but for every good throw, it seems like there's a bad throw that follows it, or for every two bad throws, there's only one good throw that kind of goes with it. So from that standpoint, like that's where he kind of stands. And then I think Shedeur has had better days throwing the football overall than Deshaun has. But then you see some of the, I guess, growing pains of a young player. Maybe situational awareness isn't quite there yet, and maybe struggling a little bit to get guys in and out of the huddle on a line at times and sort of working through some of those things. And that's totally normal, by the way. He's a second-year quarterback who's trying to kind of find his footing and understand everything. So there's a lot that's been thrown at him in the last calendar year plus, and so that's fine. But if Todd Monken's kind of decided between this, he might, and I kind of feel like this is the way it's heading, I feel like he's ultimately going to settle on Deshaun because he just trusts him a little bit more certain things. There's other elements to this as well. Like I think a lot of people have argued it feels a little easier to go Deshaun to Shador than it does Shador to Deshaun. And then it's how, there's obviously the fan side of this where it's like, how do fans really feel about Deshaun? Do they really want to see Deshaun? But the organization and Tom Monken's going to make the decision that he thinks helps his team win. So there's a lot of kind of intersecting things going on here. I don't think either quarterback's really been exceptional. I think it's just kind of been a lot of the same day over day, waiting for somebody to sort of stamp their name as the obvious starter, and it just hasn't kind of happened.
Yeah, when Gardner Johnson is popping off yesterday, calling Sanders the check down king, is that a fair criticism, or is this just C.J. Gardner Johnson's mouth on display for everyone?
Yeah, I mean, I think there has been a lot of checking the football down at practice throughout training camp for the Browns. I don't think that's I don't think that's untrue. That's a lot of what we've seen so far. But with that said, I see things a little bit differently depending on like the situation. Like for Shador, for example, I know last year one of the things that at the time offensive coordinator Tommy Rees talked about they were working on with him was not forcing the ball into places that they did that he didn't need to, and kind of just taking what the defense gives you. And so I think that's one area where Shador has gotten a lot better is, feeling that if everything's covered up, hey, it's okay. You got your outlet with the running back or the receiver or your tight end and just kind of take it and live with the results. And so I think he's really put an emphasis on trying to just, take those plays, take the yards he can get and kind of go from there. I think Deshaun, a lot of the checkdowns is from a similar standpoint of just kind of taking what the defense gives you, but also him not necessarily being as willing to push the ball down the field. I think it's pretty obvious at this point Shador is willing to push the ball down the field when he wants to and when he needs to, so I don't think that's a big issue. But yeah, in general, I think there's probably some elements of that to the Browns' offense at this point, and some of it could be quarterback limitations. But I also don't think that that's like the end of the world for them. I think they're just trying to run a productive offense that can move the football, and sometimes that's the results that you get. So I don't think C.J. Gardner-Johnson was wrong in saying that, and there were certainly moments yesterday where there were some checkdowns, but they made their fair share of deeper shots over the field or down the field and tried to make some other things happen. And I thought in retrospect, they held their own the best that you could expect from an offense that we have a lot of questions about.
Yeah. Spencer, as far as tomorrow, what to expect now, I'm not expecting anybody from Buffalo, any starters to play. Has Monken or anybody said anything about, will we see ones out there tomorrow? And since we really don't have a one at quarterback, what's your best guess who we might see at quarterback tomorrow for Cleveland?
Yeah, so Tom Monken has kind of been promising for a couple weeks now that each quarterback that's competing for the starting job will get one start each. And then he hasn't been totally transparent on what he'll do with the third preseason game, but we're all kind of assuming that it becomes final dress rehearsal, if you will, before the season starts. So Deshaun got his chance to start last week against the Bears, and then this week it's Shador starting. And that was kind of the way he wanted to divide it up, make sure they each got a full first half of action to kind of put some things on tape and see what they can do. Now, the biggest difference is Deshaun got to run with like what the full first team is theoretically going to look like. He had the first team O-line in front of him, had the first team receivers around him, had Quinshon Judkins at running back. So he had the luxury of that. Monken said this week that assuming the work on Thursday was going to be productive, which he certainly felt that way yesterday when we talked to him after practice, he wasn't going to force the issue with the starters with Shador. He will play some of the young guys, he said, so I would assume like any of the rookies, Spencer Fano at tackle, Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston, I'm assuming those guys will probably still play at least for a little bit alongside Shador, but he won't have the first team offense with him. So from the offensive line standpoint, some of these other positions, it's kind of a wait and see to what those groups will kind of look like tomorrow. We can insinuate a few names that'll be out there, but we do know for a fact that Shador Sanders is going to be the starter for at least a half, and then Deshaun is supposed to take over in the third quarter, and then Dylan Gabriel in the fourth quarter.
All right, so this name was on my list, but you just said his name, and we talked, leading up to the draft because, heck, his dad lives in Rochester, and he spent some time. How's Concepcion look so far at Browns camp?
He's been awesome, honestly, and I admittedly during the pre-draft process was somewhat worried about the one knock on him, of course, was like some of the drops that you saw on tape coming out of college. You went back and watched some of those, And you did realize it wasn't always his fault. I don't think the quarterback play was always like the best in supporting him and all those things. So I don't think it was always on him, but it was still certainly an issue. And he even acknowledged it when he arrived here that, it was something he was going to be working on and trying to get better at. And I think in the spring it was a little bit touch and go. He had some drops. He wasn't, there were some errors there at times, but then he's completely cleaned that up here in the summer months and into training camp here as we get deeper and deeper into this thing. And he's been just special at times. I think the thing that is the most what's the word I'm looking for? I think the thing that's most impressive about him is just how he already looks like he's not, like, the moment isn't too big for him, right? Like, he, in the Bears game last week, he gets that sweep play, the jet sweep where he comes around, keeps his balance as he's hit near the goal line and extends the ball for a touchdown. And he catches 3 passes for 27 yards, returns a punt for 31 yards, and was talking afterwards about how he thinks if he wouldn't have gotten tripped up, he would have broken it for even more yards. So there was a lot to like in his preseason debut. And then in the joint practice on Thursday against the Bills, he's out here making these big plays, and there was a shot down the middle of the field to him from Deshaun Watson, and he's kind of talking some smack to the Bills defense a little bit. I saw in one video. So, like, he truly has just shown himself as like this plug-and-play player as a rookie at that age, and it's pretty impressive that nothing feels too big for him. He's just taking everything in stride, learning as he goes, and just living up to the moment. And that's been really, really cool to see. I know he obviously was born in Rochester, so there's a cool connection there for you guys. And I know I know his family. He told me like his family all kind of thought he might end up in Buffalo, or kind of rooting for that to a degree because he'd be so close to home. And I know Bills fans kind of had their eyes on him. But yeah, I think Cleveland certainly got a good one here, and the early returns have been impressive.
Yeah, they can trade him to Buffalo. I mean, it still happen, right? No, it's not happening. Spencer, going back to the coaches here, and tomorrow, 2 teams, 2 rookie head coaches, but my gosh, they're not the same situations. Joe Brady, there isn't a honeymoon period. There's a lot of pressure in Buffalo, as you know. I usually think there's a honeymoon period for a new head coach, but with the Browns, I mean, how much rope does Todd Monken get here in Cleveland? What have been your first impressions here starting in the spring and throughout training camp here?
Yeah, I love that you brought this up because, back when the coaching carousel this offseason was obviously pretty crazy. I mean, 10 coaches got hired, as we know. One of them you guys are very familiar with, in Joe Brady with the Bills situation, and that was one of the more, I think, surprising ones to a degree because of the success the Bills have had over the years, but it just kind of felt like they got stagnant, I would assume. But when all those lists came out, it was like, rank the coaching hires and predict who's going to get fired first. Like, Todd Monken was continually rated like 10th on the list for the hires and was voted as like the guy that was going to get fired first. And part of me, I give some grace in that. I think part of that is people outside of Cleveland, and maybe even in Cleveland to a degree, don't trust the Browns. Like, they just think the Browns make all the most boneheaded decisions and never get this type of stuff right. And listen, the recent history suggests that there's some truth in that. They haven't been able to figure out the quarterback position. They've missed on coaches after coaches. They've had these one and done coaches over the years. So I get why there's probably a trust factor there. But when I think about like this coaching carousel and like 10 coaches being hired, everyone's just pointing to Monken as the obvious one. But I'm sitting here and I'm like, guys, there's 10 coaches. Are we sure that like all these other jobs, like all these guys are going to be better than Monken, who's been in the league for a really long time and we know has an effective and productive offensive scheme that we've seen work in the NFL? Like, I don't know that I buy that. And to your point on Buffalo, like, I'm not saying Joe Brady won't be a good coach, but if the last coach just got fired because he was coming up short in AFC championship games, and that's like near the ceiling of what you always hope your team can achieve, like, who's to say he doesn't have a short leash? To your point, like, if he loses 2 straight years in the playoffs, like, will the Bills be looking for another coach? So I actually think Todd Monken has a decent leash here, and when I say decent, I mean I think he gets at least 2 years, and then once we see what the quarterback situation maybe looks like next year, if they think they have their guy, you're probably going to have the expectations a little higher, and then that could lead to him getting fired if the results aren't there. But I think he's getting at least 2 years to kind of build this thing, because I think the Browns as an organization understand where they are right now. They're in a rebuilding phase. You don't trade Myles Garrett in the offseason before your first-year head coach is taking things over and going to have his first season, and then be like, oh, by the way, sorry that we handicapped you, and you had to work with two quarterbacks that were here before you even got here and had no say in selecting, but now we're going to fire you. Unless he's like just brutally terrible as a coach, doesn't know what he's doing, and I don't think that's going to be the case because Tom Monken's very smart. He's been in this league a long time. Like I said, he has an offensive system that works. I think he's going to be okay from that standpoint. Yes, there's other elements to the head coaching job he has to learn and figure out, but I think he's going to be okay. So unless it's like Freddie Kitchens level, he's always the reference point I use here in Cleveland, like that level bad, I think he's certainly going to be back for next year, and I think they're going to try to give him some time beyond that even to build his culture, get his quarterback, and then see where this thing ends up.
Spencer, I mean, last year, of course, you had Myles Garrett on defense, and I'll ask you about Verse here in a little bit, but I'm just curious to get your thoughts here on the shift at coordinator. And in a way, it's a relatable story, right? Hey, I'd like to have the head coaching job, and you get passed over for it, and you bring in somebody else. Talking about Jim Schwartz. Now, when Jim Schwartz was the defensive coordinator in Buffalo, and this is going back years, you're bringing in Rex Ryan's like, no, that ain't going to fit. And Jim Schwartz had other options, and he exited stage right. I was disappointed they couldn't find a way to keep Schwartz in-house here. So what are your thoughts about Schwartz exiting, and tell me about this new defensive coordinator you have in Mike Ruttenberg?
Yeah, I think – and Jim, I think, has done a podcast or did some show since where he kind of talked about this a little bit. And I think when you hear his perspective, it does make some sense. Like, I think everybody wanted him to just like sing Kumbaya and come back in the building and be like, hey, it's all good. But Jim Schwartz is a really prideful guy. I mean, from his time in Buffalo, you guys are certainly familiar with that. And so getting passed over, I think, really stuck in his craw. And I don't think he wanted to like come here and just try to make it work to make it work. Like, I think he felt he deserved that job. I think he felt that he had a good shot at that job, and when he didn't get selected, he was a little miffed by that. And I think that's just human nature. Everyone wanted him to act professionally and handle it differently. And yeah, there was the story about him storming out of the building. So maybe in that instance, like, you don't want to see that. But I don't think like it's the end of the world that a guy didn't necessarily think it was going to work and kind of wanted to force their hand to get out of there. Now he is still under contract with the Browns. So that's why he's not coaching this year anywhere. They weren't going to let him out of the contract because he wanted to leave. So that he's kind of taken a hiatus for a year. But it's funny. Like, Jim Schwartz, when he was here, was lauded as this great defensive mind and one of the best in the game, and everybody loved him, and they loved his weekly like history lessons on football that he would give in his press conferences. And then the second that whole story came out, it was like, well, what did this guy really do anyway? And I was trying to remind people, guys, like, the defense was bad before he got there. And everyone would just point to Myles Garrett and say, well, Myles Garrett was there. It was like, yeah, but the guy who was before Jim Schwartz had Myles Garrett, and the defense stunk to high heaven. Like, I didn't understand where this narrative came from, that like Jim Schwartz was like just overrated as a DC. He's won a Super Bowl as a DC. And so I didn't like the way that we were trying to like rewrite the history on Jim Schwartz to a degree. And so I've been trying to tell people I think the defense is probably due for a step back. And when you lose Jim Schwartz and you lose Myles Garrett, that should be the expectation. But Mike Rutenberg's come in and said he's going to try to keep things pretty status quo in terms of playing a lot of man, trying to be an attack-style defense. I think we've seen some of that at camp so far. But he's going to change some things up in the secondary, and he has a very thin roster in terms of depth. I think the top-end guys you guys know on the defensive side of the ball are there, but down the depth chart, if somebody were to get hurt, I think there's some concern. So we'll have to see how that all kind of shakes out. I think the early returns are that this defense looks like it could be pretty good, but I also think the Bills maybe exploited a little bit, that they're susceptible to some chunk plays. So still some things to clean up.
Yeah, well, I remember Verse with the Rams. Certainly a lot of our listeners do. You do too. And you got a good player in return, but there's only one Myles Garrett out there. Myles Garrett, the best defensive player of our generation. So how's the fan base dealing with this, knowing, all right, we don't have Myles Garrett, but my gosh, can you get behind Jared Verse? Tell me how it's been going so far.
Yeah, I think there was an initial shock when the trade went down, and rightfully so. I mean, Myles is going to go down as, if he's not one, he's 1B for like the greatest players in franchise history next to Jim Brown. Like that's the type of talent that he is. And so when you lose that guy, of course people are going to be disappointed and feel like you didn't get enough in the trade. And there was a lot of that specific commentary on the day that the trade was made because people thought, well, if you trade Myles Garrett, you should get at least 3 first-round picks. But then I think as the dust settled and people thought more and more about and looked more into who Jared Verse was and how good he was and how he's this rising star in the league, 2 years, 2 Pro Bowls, was Defensive Rookie of the Year in 2024. Browns defense now has the last 2 Defensive Rookie of the Years on it. And no, he's not Myles Garrett, and nobody should expect him to be. But you basically created a hole and filled the hole immediately with a guy who's ascending in this league as a pass rusher. And I think people feel pretty good about that. I think the biggest thing that have made people come around on it is the leadership part of Verse's game. He's very involved with from the day he got here, he's been very involved with his fellow defensive ends, defensive line guys, talking to them, talking some smack a little bit, working with them. He's working with Spencer Fano off on the side. And I did see Myles Garrett, by the way, to be fair to Myles, do some of those things when he was here. So I don't think that it was just a Jared Verse thing, but there's just a different demeanor and he's more of that vocal leader than Myles probably was. And so I think there's an impact there that people are really excited about him rubbing off on guys and sort of being a culture setter for the team moving forward. So I think people have definitely come around on it. There's always going to be comparisons. People are always going to try to stack his numbers up against Myles because when 2 people are involved in the same trade, that's just kind of how it goes. But I think there's a lot of excitement about what the future holds with Jared Verse, despite the fact that it came at the expense of losing Myles Garrett. And by the way, if they use those picks they got from the Rams to ultimately get a quarterback next year, perhaps, then I think it just means that this trade ends up being one of the more memorable moments to push the franchise forward in years to come.
Yeah, suspend your judgment on the trade. Let's see how those picks what they turn into. Couple more for you, Spencer, and tell me I'm crazy because I look at the Browns' schedule: Jets, Titans, Saints, Giants, Colts with Daniel Jones. If you get a few divisional wins here, it's not the Falcons at home. That's it's questionable quarterback play. It's not a murderer's row of quarterbacking you're facing. What are the odds that this Browns team could actually be respectable? And at minimum, when they're throwing up the graphic there after Thanksgiving, the Browns are quote unquote in the hunt.
Yeah, so I always think the strength of schedule thing's funny because it's the go-to bar for that is always going off of last year's results, right? And we know all these teams are different from last year. There's new pieces and parts. There's the draft. There's team players changing teams. There's new coaches. There's so much that's changed. So it's hard to really sit there and just assume, hey, the Browns have a really easy strength of schedule because there's always some team or 2 teams that come out of nowhere that you weren't expecting that get it all together because, well, they found the right coach now or their quarterback sort of takes that next step or they finally built a roster around the quarterback or whatever that can help them kind of ascend. So I definitely agree with you that on the surface and on face value, it feels like it's a pretty light schedule. And I do think there's going to be some opportunities for the Browns to win some games this year. I'm not expecting the Jets to be world beaters. I'm not expecting the Titans to be world beaters unless Cam Ward really takes a step. And certainly the Falcons, I think, are going through some things right now with their quarterback situation, like you mentioned. So there's going to be some opportunities, yes. In terms of what the ceiling kind of is for this team, if the defense takes a smaller step back, and I think that there's a chance that happens, and they go from being a top 1, 2, 3 defense to maybe still being in the top 12, I think that's reasonable that could happen. Then I think that group still kind of carries the team. If the offense can take a step forward with a lot of the pieces they added, and they can kind of balance out the defense a little bit more, then I do think you're looking at an opportunity where this team could potentially, if everybody stays healthy if you're thinking best case scenario, where they could push to 7, 8 wins. I would say 8 wins. I think 8 to 9 would probably be the max ceiling if everything goes right this year. But you got to understand too, nothing ever goes right. There's always injuries, and I think this team depth-wise is very thin at a number of key positions. And so I kind of look at it and I think that Vegas number that's out there, 5.5, I think that's very fair. I think this team should be capable of winning at least as many games as last year, being more competitive probably in more games than they were, and maybe winning one game extra than what they did a year ago. But I still think there's a lot of growing that has to happen. I still think they're waiting for that quarterback play to kind of come around.
Yeah, last one for you here, Spencer, because as
Sure.
you know, Rochester's a big baseball town. The Guardians are like the anti-Guardians. They're usually, hey, it's the end of the season, we're winning games, and then I really liked what they did at the trade deadline. Joe Adell, and you get Lowe, and you get this inning eaters guy in Griffin, and then you get swept by the Mets, and I'm a Met fan. That should never, ever happen. What is going on with the Guardians? But then I look at the American League, that final wild card, it's just this schmozzle right now. Like, who do you like to come out of that mess? Can the Guardians get it together here as we head to September?
Well, first of all, it's good to hear you're a Mets fan, not a Yankees fan, Gene. I didn't know that about you, so I'm glad that it's the other New York team and not the Yankees. But it's funny. I when I'm on the radio, especially at the trade deadline time of year, like we're always arguing about like, will the Guardians finally be buyers and like take this thing seriously? And for once, I wouldn't say they pushed like all the chips into the table, but they certainly pushed more than they normally do. And they tried to kind of go for it in an American League that feels very wide open and that no one's really just so dominant. And it's just I've never seen this fan base go from like this highest of highs to this lowest of lows, like as quickly as they did that week after the trade deadline. Then they get swept by the Mets. And it's just kind of continued over the course of the last 2 or 3 weeks where they still just haven't kind of gotten out of this rut that they're in. Now there's still time. The AL is still wide open. So we'll see what happens. But as exciting as those additions were, and I think they have helped contribute to some good moments so far, it just hasn't kind of come together at the right time, unfortunately. And that's kind of the risk of doing business, right? The biggest thing is like hopefully this doesn't scare them away from doing that type of stuff in the future. But I guess that's like a bridge that it's very, very off in the distance because we don't even know what next year is going to look like with the CBA and all that. So we'll see.
I know. Yeah, it's just like, save your baseball while we have it. I'm not expecting anything to get done. Spencer, Locked On Browns, and tell everybody which 92.3 The Fan and Odyssey station, which you can hear right in the app. You want more Cleveland sports talk. Certainly, when are you on? Where can they get more of your content?
Yeah, I host our Saturday morning show 8 to noon, so I'll be on tomorrow. If you want to hear some more debating about Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson, you can stop on in. And then I host a Locked On Browns podcast and cover the Browns there, and at Browns Roundtable for any of my written content. So appreciate anybody that wants to jump in and follow along with the Browns at all this season. If you just need a break from so much winning and with following the Bills, I understand. Sometimes it's good to see like a mediocre thing to remember how good you have it, you know?
Well, I know more than one person going out to Cleveland tomorrow morning. It's not a tough drive, and that's good to know you'll be on tomorrow morning, 92.3 for folks who can think of that or inside the Odyssey app. Listen to Spencer, the Rochester native, tomorrow. Spencer, always appreciate your time, and we'll be checking it out tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gene. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Spencer German, who really one of the best on the Browns beat for sure, and we take great pride. We're super provincial here in Rochester. 585-866-4326. Before we go to break, a resident Cleveland fan on the show, terrible to take Timmy. Do you disagree with anything that Spencer said there?
No, the Browns stink. But what more? I've been saying it for 38 years, 35, because they didn't exist for 3 years of my life. But they are not a good football team. And
right, hear me out, though, okay? Because if we're just doing the crappy quarterbacks that you're going to be facing, okay? Old man Aaron Rodgers twice, Geno Smith. All right, Cam Ward, I'm not so sure. I don't know what they're trotting out there in New Orleans. Fernando Mendoza, we'll get to that. I don't know who will be calling the shots in Atlanta. I'm not sold on the Giants quarterback for sure. And no, I'm not going to think that Daniel Jones all of a sudden is going to do what he did last year. At minimum, in half of those games, the Browns quarterbacking situation isn't great, but it's an easy schedule. And I understand what Spencer's saying. Gene, you don't know. One of these teams could all of a sudden rise up. But I'm saying
one of those teams will rise up, and it won't be Cleveland. 9-8 is the ceiling.
It's a season of hope.
No, Gene.
I'm giving you hope.
We've talked about this for as long as we've known each other. I know the Browns stink, and back when the Bills stink, you didn't know the Bills stunk. It's just a fact of our relationship. The Bills were bad. I knew it. You didn't. The Browns were bad. I knew it. You knew it. It's just the fact of reality is the Browns are at absolute best the third best team in this division, and botting them out while Deshaun's on an expiring contract and giving Shedeur an opportunity to fail, not succeed, because he just won't. Go 3-14, call it another Browns season, and let's just fast forward April.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, get ready for 9-8. You just missed the playoffs, and it
That's
doesn't put
best
you.
case scenario.
Yeah,
and that's even worse.
Well, that's even worse.
Right, that's worse.
That's worse because then the quarterback you might be able to get. Happy hours here. It's a Friday happy hour edition. Do give us a call. We love interacting with you. 585-866-4326. Pataglia here, WGR Rochester. Rattle in your ducks or rise in your heating and cooling bills? Well, if you do, give Belknap a ring. With 0% financing, the cost of upgrading to a high-efficiency dual-fuel heating system is a breeze. Learn more at belknapheating.com. That's belknapheating.com. Go green, save energy and money with Belknap. Schedule a free estimate on your new installation. Give Belknap a ring at 716-688-1728. For more comfort and less ka-ching, give Belknap a ring.
For great deals, visit your local Upstate.
Opportunity employer.
WROCAM, WBEE, HD2 Rochester, and everywhere you go at WGR Rochester. The sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. WGR Rochester. Sports Update.
Second preseason game for the Buffalo Bills coming up tomorrow. It's the Bills and Browns at 1 o'clock. Spencer German, who we just spoke with, thinks it'll be Shadur Sanders at quarterback, but we're not entirely sure right now. Dalton Kincaid says don't sleep on tight end Jackson Hawes.
He's kind of like our secret weapon. You know, you can do a lot of blocking, but his routes have gotten a lot better, both technique and his hands.
Rochester Red Wings in a three-way tie for first place in the 20-team International League. This is the second half of the standings. Wings look to extend their winning streak to 7 tonight, once again playing at Omaha. Bottom of the fourth, only game in progress. The Brewers up on the Braves 2-0. Yankees tonight host the Jays. Sports brought to you by GetMyPerks.com. Get 2 rounds for 1 to one of the best courses in our area, Wildwood Country Club. Gene Battaglia, WGR Rochester.
Pull up a chair, stay for a while. You're in the sports bar on WGR. Grab a drink, hang your coat, get sports talk. Live from Western New York. It's a master show. 9 times better than your typical host. 9 times. Gene and Tim have takes much hotter than most. No one cares when you're out. Sabres, Bills, Americans, Red Wings, and Nighthawks. For Rochester Sports Talk.
We did it. We got to the weekend. Thank you for making us part of your day on your drive home, or maybe you're just sitting out already, cracking open a cold one, listening on the Odyssey app. Maybe you're like our buddy Greg, who tweeted in a photo. He's just hanging out in his, I think that's his sports room, big projector, and he's got us up on his wall. A big picture of terrible Time Timmy on the big screen. Greg.
Swoon.
Thank you for in this case watching. Thank you for listening. We do have Bills football tomorrow, and we do not expect any starters to play. But I gave you reasons why, if you're a really big Bills fan, you should tune in tomorrow. Like, do the Bills have a backup quarterback? Now, if you're just going over the who's available, there's one name that's out there, but I think the guy's washed. That's Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, do you really need Jimmy Garoppolo? I don't know. You know, maybe you want to see who he's dating at this point, but that's it. Like, you would be looking for other teams that would be moving off of quarterbacks. So even if tomorrow is bad, I don't know if we as observers might be hitting the panic button. I'm not sure the team would, because Kyle Allen and Shane Buechele, just put it through the lens of, could you trust those guys with the keys to the car for 2 to 3 weeks? Right now, no, I don't. I would need to see more here. And that actually more starts tomorrow. And you're not going to see Browns first stringers on defense either. So you know what? Make plays against the second string. See where you go from there. Reason number 2, Tyler Bass. Bass, not a good day yesterday in the joint practices. That's a real pass rush he's going up against in Cleveland. And he missed 2 shorties. So can Bass recover? If Bass makes all his kicks, that's great. If not, we're talking about it. Kicking is like umpiring, all right? We're not talking about umpiring unless it's bad. If you do your job, we're not talking about it. And kicking, same thing. Like, Tyler Bass makes all his kicks, then we're not talking about him on Monday. That's a good thing, I would think. Other things to watch. Backup center. One of our callers, Brad, brought up, all right, well, Cedric Van Granger, could the Bills actually get a late-round pick for him? Maybe. Well, he's got to produce. He's got to show something. Kenai Walker, I really like the kid. I hope that the Bills have him out there tomorrow, and he makes plays. And can the Bills sneak him through the practice squad? That might be tough. You might be taking an undrafted guy over Toriano Pride as a corner 4 for this team. Wouldn't that be interesting? And then who's playing in the second half? Always kind of the tell. And, gosh, we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary, by the way, of the show. And I remember the first year watching a preseason game like, wait a second, why is Manny Lawson playing here in the fourth quarter? Oh, former first-round pick. The Bills brought him in at linebacker. And apparently Rex Ryan didn't like him that much. And then was off the team. So pay attention to who is playing. at quarterback, or excuse me, at quarterback in the second half. But overall in the second half tomorrow, certainly that can be a tell. 585-866-4326. Spencer German was great. If you missed that, that's inside the Odyssey app. Our buddy Francesco will have that up wherever you get your fine audio, inside the Odyssey app, certainly our website if you're old-fashioned, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. We are the award-winning show, according to the New York State Broadcasters Association. And as with that, I present to you our bit.
It's now time for Terrible Time Timmy's Terrible Take of the Day on WGR Rochester. WGR Rochester. It's Terrible Time Timmy.
I dive into today's take, I want to rehash a take that I had last week.
Whoa. You get multiple takes
It's not
here?
a take. It's an update to a take.
All right, go ahead.
So a week or two ago, I had mentioned that Akron is basically selling away its first drive due to season ticket sales. They've announced 10 finalists, 2 of which are notable as far as like influencers and podcasters. Barstool Big Cat is one of the finalists, and then there's some other EA Sports, like, I don't know if he designs plays or what, but those are 2 of the finalists, and then one of the 10 just quit. So it might have been one of those Robert Morris people that were buying up. So they're down to 9 finalists, and that winner will be drawn sometime next week, and then I'll update you on that one too.
It's like we would never be paying. So Tim, this is why we got to reset here if we bring this up.
Sure.
Yeah, because people are like, Tim, what are you talking about? Akron, the Zips. They still call the Zips?
They are.
Okay, the Akron Zips of the MAC. No one cares about them. Let's be honest. It's the MAC. And, hey, it's the opening week of college football. How do you pay attention to that? They're doing something I have never heard of, and the head coach is Joe Moorhead. Joe Moorhead, former Fordham head coach, did a great job as the OC at Penn State, and that he parlays that to a head coaching job at Mississippi State, and then, well, yeah, you get bounced. So now he's resetting his career at Akron. Someone talked him into this idea that we're just going to do this enter to win, buy season tickets, and we will let you design the plays on the opening drive. Like, what? Well, it's a subdivision opponent. It's Robert Morris. So, like, you're going to win this game regardless. But still, this has never been done in a competitive setting. And now everybody's like, wait a second, is this actually going to work? Like, it's curious. What is your take today?
My take today is we discussed earlier this week the ranking or the ratings between like the Netflix Field of Dreams game and the WNBA record-setting game and how those are touted and compared. Last night, the NFL came out complaining about changes that Nielsen made to the ratings formula, which actually benefits them. But my take is that these change all the time, and the ratings numbers don't. Like, the number is the number, but the way that they get to the number is vastly different than it was in years past. And I guess my point is, why do we focus so intently on these ratings when the people in charge of designing them are catering to the sports leagues that kind of dictate the number that they want to see?
I'm thinking in our lifetime Nielsen will go away, because if you think about it, now there's a lot of markets where, all right, you're wearing a meter, right, and you're going and you're doing this. You like take it from the radio ratings, like, hey, in Canada on the side of the road, they hit you with the gun. Well, we have privacy laws here that don't allow you to do that. And even in Rochester, well, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to stop right there, right, because I don't want to get accused of manipulating any ratings or anything like that. But when it comes to TV, yeah, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to kind of fade away at some point. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. I'm going to lighten it up here on a Friday afternoon here, because, mind you, when I play this, right, I have to admit, if you're new to the show, hi, I'm Gene. Tim's the producer. Dan DeLorean's on vacation for 2.5 weeks in the woods. Francesco's filling in the background. I am a Met fan. So we should all, like in sports, identify where our biases are. But I'm telling you, I'm being honest. I went to school in the Bronx, right? I have nothing against the Yankees. I don't. The executive producer, my wife. We call her that because she always has feedback. Whole family Yankee fans. My father-in-law, like my brother-in-law. It's around us. I am not a Yankee hater. Now, do I despise the Braves and the Phillies? Yeah. Yeah, I don't like them. But the point here is when I play this, you're watching last night on, yes, Yankees and Orioles, and maybe you're not really paying attention, but all of a sudden you become like Scooby-Doo, like, what did Michael Kay just say?
For the Yankees, 3 runs in an inning. It's an offensive orgy, and this guy really needed it. Ramos goes the other way.
What?
It's the music for me.
Okay. So the context here is, and if you're a Yankee fan, you know this. The Yankees since June, like I can bring up any number of stats. They've been the worst offense in baseball. 3.3 runs per game in mid-June. Pretty good reason for this, right? Your number one bat, not available, and Aaron Judge. Apparently was swinging off a tee yesterday. So, yeah, the Aaron Judge and Rochester storyline in rehab on September 7th, no, I don't think that'll be happening. You'll get Aaron Judge soon enough. And Clay Bellinger, you can't go gloss past that. He's not been available. If you want to throw Giancarlo Stanton into that as well, fine. But, I mean, he hasn't been available, what? Ever. You have an excuse. That's what I'm saying. And if the Yankees get 3 runs in an inning, okay. If you're like, you're the play-by-play guy, Michael Kay, you say, my goodness, 3 runs. What an offensive explosion for the Yankees. Instead, we got this.
For the Yankees, 3 runs in an inning. It's an offensive orgy, and this guy really needed it. Ramos goes the other way.
Can you imagine the truck or just how many complaints came in? Now, I don't know. Does Michael Kay go on the air? Is he forced to apologize for this tonight? Here in the sports bar, we do things a little differently, right? If you're clutching your pearls, like, oh, shame. And I did have, and this guy, he's probably still in town. I had one guy pull me aside at the Red Wing ticket office and just wave his finger at me. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, we're here to have fun, right? And that actually was on the Yes Network. You know what also makes this funny? No organization in sports takes themselves more seriously than the Yankees. Now, go back to initial disclaimer, right? I'm not a Yankee hater, but you have to admit this, Yankee fans. It wasn't until last year. Hey, you know what? You can grow facial hair. You were that uptight. There's only one team in baseball that doesn't do the City Connects. Everybody else thinks they're fun, right? You can make more money off it. No, not the Yankees. The Yankees are so uptight, Michael Kay specifically, that, hey, they do these announcer ratings every year by awful announcing, and we don't talk about it because, well, it's not a story, right? And you can write in and vote. Michael Kay literally on his radio show lobbied. So the Yankees went from the 23rd spot all the way up to number 3.
Talk about ratings manipulation.
Yeah, ratings manipulation, or was it 4? But they still couldn't get past the Mets. Because, yeah, that is the best broadcast in New York. And that sticks in his craw. That people, you're not a Met fan, but you recognize, man, that's good chemistry between Cohen and Hernandez and Ryan Darling. Like and they will give it to you straight. If the Mets are bad, they're going to tell you they're bad. With the Yankees, do they do that? No. So, to me, Kay's kind of got little man syndrome a little bit on that. But, come on. You are the classiest organization in sports. You can't be dropping an orgy reference in there with salsa music, too, Tim. Like, can you imagine you already had that kind of queued up? I'm sorry. Like this, it's a Friday. I've got to hear this one more time.
For the Yankees, 3 runs in an inning. It's an offensive orgy, and this guy really needed it. Ramos goes the other way.
I feel like we should get that bump and just kind of bump in with the weekend, right? Just kind of.
Oh man, I can't find the other music.
What would that be?
I don't even know if I'm allowed to say it, but
no,
we have it in here.
All right, that's fine. No, we're not gonna play anything here, but
Play this one more time then.
For the Yankees, 3 runs in an inning. It's an offensive orgy, and this guy really needed it. Ramos goes the other way.
it's an offensive explosion. It would be the thing. Also, is he saying because you got 3? Never mind. I'm not even gonna. I'm not.
Well,
I mean, how many Yankee fans were just sitting there last night going, honey, did he just say what I thought he said? Yeah, that. Actually, Yankee fans don't have country accents. I'm sorry, Yankee fan. I don't know why I gave you a country accent there. 585-866-4326. Yeah, if you're new to the sports bar, yeah, sometimes we, it's not like the other fine products you hear on WGR Buffalo. We'll have more football talk. Time for your calls. 585-866-4326. My name is Gene Battaglia here, WGR Rochester.
105.7 FM and AM 950 WGR Rochester.
WGR Rochester Sports Update.
Got the second preseason game for the Buffalo Bills tomorrow, 1 o'clock in Cleveland. Joe Brady says he might use Ray Davis in a different way, returning punts.
It's something that's important to him, and look, you guys saw what he did with the kick return role last year, and if he feels like he can take advantage of that this year and can make the most of these punt return opportunities, then so be it. So, he's firmly in the mix of it.
Rochester Red Wings in a three-way tie for first place in the 20-team International League in the second half. The Wings have won 6 in a row, going at it again tonight in Omaha. Yankees tonight taking on the Jays. Sports is brought to you by GetMyPerks.com, where today get 2 rounds for the price of 1 with card to one of the best courses in our area, Wildwood Country Club. Only in a limited number up, so don't wait for some of the great deals. Log on to GetMyPerks.com. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM, AM 950, WGR Rochester.
The best local sports talk in the Flower City. The Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia on the Sports Leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR. Rochester.
Yeah, they say don't overreact to preseason football. Welcome back here to the Sports Bar. But you can look at things like, I don't know if it's wise maybe to roll out Fernando Mendoza week 1. You have Kirk Cousins. Let Mendoza kind of get in the rhythm. There's no shame in that. That's certainly one way to develop a quarterback. Look, he wasn't good last night against Houston. But that doesn't deter him. Fernando Mendoza. I'm just wondering, when he does get to be a starter, like, how is this going to play actually in the locker room across the league? This was Fernando Mendoza, the sideline report last night on ESPN.
It is tough, however, everything that is tough.
Please tell Mr. Buck I say hello.
Oh, we love it. There you go. What about Mr. Aikman?
Oh, of course. I mean, he's a legend, I think Mr. Buck needs some more love because, Mr. Aikman's already,
Well said, Fernando. You nailed it.
Thank you. God bless.
Yeah, back to you guys.
See, there it is. Back to Mr. Buck. That's the stuff. I mean, he is unique.
Mr. Buck. Now, immediately I think of Tim Tebow, right? Like, Tim Tebow, I always thought had a brand. And credit him because, you know what? That brand, he probably made a lot of money. His brand was just supreme goodness. Always good, and it plays in some places. He wasn't a good quarterback. And he tried baseball. Wasn't good at baseball. But, Tim Tebow, he won 2 national championships. That's it. Fernando Mendoza won 1. And he was really good on a very good Indiana team. Tim, give me that first one. This was Fernando Mendoza just pontificating on what this time of year is all about.
It is tough, however, everything that is tough, you wouldn't want something to be easy. If it's tough, it's worth it, and that's why it works at the highest level. And it's great because the teammates, we rely on each other. We rely on the receivers to make the right timing and right route. The receivers rely on the quarterback to throw in the correct timing. The linemen rely on the quarterback to get it out on time. The quarterback rely on the lineman to give them that time to throw it. And then the tight end, there's so many different variables of it. And when we all rely on each other, I believe it makes us closer. And when we become one oiled unit and we have all this synergy and become a dynamic ecosystem where we're evolving together, playing on time, be able to make, and then still make some off-schedule plays, but mostly playing on time, then that's what teams in this system take the next level.
Okay, like, what's your favorite cliche there? Synergy? Throwing that word in? Okay, that's great.
It's a combination of Tim Tebow and Jameis Winston, and if any indicator, he's going to stink.
Okay, hey, Rook, shut the F up. You are a rookie. What would you know about well-oiled machine and synergy and everything like that? Like, the only thing was missing there is, well, we did this in Indiana. I'm like, oh, my gosh. Tim, I'm seriously worried about him. His teammates might hate him if he's going to, talk like that the whole time. Or does it kind of at first you think he's a goof, and then you're just like, all right. That's just Fernando being Fernando, I suppose.
If he can play, it doesn't matter what he does, but he hasn't proven that he can play. So at the moment, if I'm a vet, I'm not taking this guy seriously. I think he's an absolute clown.
No, I think that Kubiak has to start Cousins. I think Kubiak is saying all the right stuff. No, it's still an open competition. The irony here is Kirk Cousins is a goof too. He is. I watched the quarterback series. Like, what was the mean? You like that? You like that? And we're like, what? Okay. But Kurt, nothing like this, kid. Wow.
This is Dork at the most important and coolest position in sports. And it's if it doesn't work out, the writing was on the wall. But if it does work out, this is going to open up the airwaves for somebody of similar ilk to succeed.
All right, so let's play well-oiled synergy here once again. This is me, the reporter. So, Fernando, tell me, how's the offense coming along?
It is tough. However, everything that is tough, you wouldn't want something to be easy. If it's tough, it's worth it, and that's why it works at the highest level. And it's great because the teammates, we rely on each other. We rely on the receivers to make the right timing, right route. The receivers rely on the quarterback to throw in the correct timing. The linemen rely on the quarterback to get it out on time. The quarterback rely on the lineman to give them that time to throw it. And then the tight end, there's so many different variables to it. And when we all rely on each other, I believe it makes us closer. And when we become one oiled unit and we have all this synergy and become a dynamic ecosystem where we're evolving together, playing on time, be able to make, and then still make some off-schedule plays, but mostly playing on time, then that's what teams in this system take the next level.
Just, you know what, Fernando, just speak in simple terms. Dynamic ecosystem, synergy. No one talks like this. No one. No one should talk to you like this. Hey, you know what? We're just working it out here, and when we get the timing down, it's going to be great. I can't work. Yeah, this league is tough. Nothing's easy, but we're working hard. By the way, that's also another cliche, too. The hard makes it good. No, if I had 10 out of 10 people, would you rather take the easy path or the tough path? Easy would be the way to go. Give me the easy play. Hey, that guy's wide open. Boop. I don't need the tough play. Make the easy play, Fernando. 585-866-4326 is our number as, we're heading into the weekend here. Shout out to the Wings. Wow. Can you believe that? After that first half, that just coming up ever so short, it's going to be disappointing in this way. Meaning, I was talking to somebody today, Tim, their first fantasy draft this weekend. I'm like, you know what? We got to talk a little more fantasy as we're kind of getting closer. I feel like I'm a little behind.
Same.
But with preseason football and fantasy football and maybe survivor football, college football. Well, what's that? Oh, yeah. Who's going to be the you could love baseball and it's just going to get pushed to the side. It's just a fact. It's a problem. It's the timing here. And the idea that the Red Wings, it used to be, hey, season ended at Labor Day, and that felt right. But what was always weird was with the minor leagues ending on Labor Day, rosters expanding to 40 in the majors. That was always dumb. It's like, wait a second. You could have unlimited pitch runners and bullpens of 15 guys if you wanted. We're going to play the game by different rules here in the month of September. No, if you're not familiar, you get to call up 2 guys now, and that's it. And to keep everything kind of in line, AAA, AA, they all play till the end of the major league season. That's September. So that's why when the schools go back up here, we go back to school in the Northeast. To me, it feels like, kind of, sort of, in a way. Yes, I know the Red Wings are still playing, but it just does not have that same vibe. It can't. We all get busy. High school football is going on the way. Your kids are busy. So with that being said, here are those gosh darn Red Wings. Are you kidding me? The best record they've had to this point since 1997? And the irony here is if they come up short by a game or two again, they will finish in AAA with the best record in the season and not make the postseason.
That seems flawed to me.
That is incredibly flawed. And for folks who know their baseball history, we bring in baseball writer. No, we won't bring in baseball writer. But in 1981, Tim, the split season resulted in the Cincinnati Reds missing the postseason, even though they had the best record. Because, well, they were really good but just missed out in the first half, and they were really good and just missed out in the second half. And I'm just wondering if the same thing will happen again. Last call is for you here on the show. We'll look ahead to the weekend, and we will also have time for your calls. So do give us a call if you're so inclined at 585-866-4326. Gene Battaglia here, WGR Rochester.
Rochester's home for live sports and the best sports talk anywhere. The Sports Bar with Gene Battaglia, 95.7 FM and AM 950 WGR, Rochester.
I don't think Bills fans should lose any sleep over this news out of Houston today. Welcome back to the Sports Bar. Gene Battaglia with you. One last segment before we head on off to the weekend here, right? So we knew the Texans were down a few receivers, right? Higgins goes down with a torn ACL. We don't want to see that. But it's so bad, like, okay, you need to bring in help. And are you trading for anybody? Are you bringing in a big name? And all right, so today Houston signed two guys. You're familiar with both of them. One actually played in Buffalo. We forget about Zay Jones. Like Zay Jones, second-round pick. Like that first draft for Buffalo, Tre'Davious White, all-pro. Deion Dawkins, not all-pro, but, hey, you drafted a left tackle who, all right, 10 years in next year. Zay Jones is still kicking around in this league, and so he's a Houston Texan today, as is Sterling Shepard. Sterling Shepard's an odd guy because when he burst onto the scene with the Giants, I'm like, ooh, they have something there. And then he pops a little bit in Tampa. But it's just never kind of stuck. So between these two guys, I'm not worried. If either ends up being wide receiver 3, I like the Bills' chances. Week 1. You know who else likes the Bills' chances? Mike Garofalo. Mike Garofalo today with Rich Eisen saying, all right, like which team has actually been the best so far this year?
I mean, the best team I saw was the Buffalo Bills.
Why is that? Josh Allen, or they're doing it differently while kind of running it back with the exception of DJ Moore being there. What do you got?
Who's been phenomenal, and the way we talked to Joe Brady a bunch, and I remember at one point he said, I wish that they would have a miscommunication. I wish that they would, he went, oh, no. So they could work. They've just been so on point that we haven't had that. Talk about, champagne problems right there, right? It's just like he's looking for adversity for them to work their way through. The way that he phrased it was DJ Moore's really good about the way that he runs his routes, the way that he gets open. He's a good communicator in that regard, not with his mouth, but with his body and with his body language. And Josh Allen obviously is picking up on that. So that could be, and they wanted a high volume guy. Stephon Diggs was a high volume guy. Khalil Shakir had good numbers over the last couple of years, but like a high volume. DJ Moore's had 250-yard games. I remember I covered one of those in Washington a couple of years ago. That's the kind of guy that they need to really make this team explosive and this offense explosive, and he's going to be. If DJ Moore, even at this point in his career, is setting career numbers and doing things that you wouldn't expect a guy this deep in his career to do, sounds like that's going to be the case there in Buffalo. Also, the stadium seems to be getting a lot of heat. I was totally fine with it. Now, it was empty when I was in there, but it's smaller, it's tighter to the field. Looked like the seats were tilted a little bit further. They've got that closed. I think that's going to wind up being one of the louder stadiums, because the other stadium was wide open, sort of tilted away, open on the ends. I think this is going to be a louder stadium than the Bills are used to.
So that again, that's Mike Garofalo on Rich Eisen, and I wish I knew the context of that, because to hear Eisen say, "Hey, they're running it back." All right, on the offense, yeah, but if it's the Buffalo Bills running it back altogether, no. Anything but on the defense. And if you're looking for reasons for optimism, of course, Josh Allen. Can he even be better this year? I don't see why not. Can he get another MVP? I don't see why he can't. He's the favorite. But if you can get an actual defense that can get him the ball a little bit more and then put the clamps down on some teams that are not named the New York Jets or Carolina last year. Like, you think of all the participants on that defense last year that are no longer on this defense. A starter in Matt Milano. A starter in Joey Bosa. A rotational guy in Daquan Jones. Tre'Davious White. Bummer. Jordan Poyer. Taylor Rapp. Oh, gone. By the way, Daquan Jones visiting the New England Patriots. I don't know if anything happened. There was another former Buffalo Bill that was taking a look-see there too. See if you can find that, Tim. But, yeah, interesting that Garofalo had that comment about the stadium too. And I say, and I will continue to say this: multiple things are true about it. Number one thing that is true is like the Bills didn't do a good job of controlling their own message. They didn't. You have to think like a lawyer and think of all the angles. And so when you open up the stadium to the first time to the public and people have cell phones, you know what? If those seats aren't for sale for football, take the damn seats out. And that would have mitigated a little bit of it. Or maybe, just maybe, first event at the stadium, you know what you do? You actually have a concert. And then nothing's obstructed. Your eyes are actually going to a different spot. Tim, who was the other guy?
Shaq Thompson.
That's it.
And also possibly worth noting, Rashad Bateman, receiver for the Ravens, arrested for alleged family domestic violence.
Oh.
Friday news.
I don't like hearing that. That's awful.
Happens far too often.
I mean, it's like, yeah, it's, all right. That's right. Friday at 5:51, team in the NFL, big receiver part of it, and well, we won't be hearing from Mr. Bateman for a while. Okay, thank you, Tim. Yeah, that is not we do that is not something we would play the John Sterling breaking news.
Yeah, no,
for. No, we don't want to be doing that. Yankees tonight taking on the Jays. That's the highlight to me of the baseball schedule. You do have the Little League game too, which actually isn't bad. Like I want to hate on Milwaukee. I do. I can't. Like, Milwaukee is still continuing the games. Murphy seems to be the guy that knows what button to push as far as a manager. He's really good. He might be the best manager in the game today. And Atlanta is just kind of coasting. I mean, I don't know if that's going to be a team that's going to go. My inclination is that's going to be a team that gets in the early kaboot there for the early boot in the postseason. 3 games in the NFL tonight on the preseason docket. And what's strange about these 3 games, 6 teams, 5 of the 6 starting quarterbacks are playing tonight. NFL Network at 9 o'clock. You've got Jordan Love against Bo Nix. Okay, I don't know how long those guys will get. Hey, it's preseason game number 3 for Carolina. Here they are again. And Bryce Young really wasn't good in Buffalo. Need to get him more work. Bryce Young against Trevor Lawrence. And if you tune into that game on ESPN at 7:30, you're going to notice, whoa, wait a second, this Jacksonville stadium looks a little different. There's cranes everywhere. Unlike building what we did here, building a new stadium, they're trying to do this on the fly over 3 years. So this is year 1 where they're just going to go reduce capacity. And then next year, and the year after that, they're playing in Orlando at whatever they used to call it, the Bowl. It's now Camping World. And then tonight, you do get Geno Smith, who, sorry, Jets fans, that's your starting quarterback. He's starting tonight, but Pittsburgh is not going to trot out Aaron Rodgers. Not even going to trot out Mason Rudolph. They're going with Drew Lohr, Will Howard, combination of those two. Missed the show today. You're just getting in your car. Well, then download the Odyssey app and go back and listen from the beginning. We're on weekdays 4 to 6, or you just want to listen to certain segments. Well, Francesco has it up in podcast form. Wherever you get your fine audio, we certainly recommend the Odyssey app because there you can listen to, WFAN, WEEI, lots of great sports radio stations all inside that app. Thank you to Francesco. Thank you, Tim. Dan Fates will join us on the show Monday. We'll talk some Bills then. Have yourself a great sports weekend. BetMGM tonight coming up next.